I would like to discuss what are the do's and don'ts if you start a collaboration with corporate companies. And I would like to start at the beginning with a management of expectations. I think it's very important that you understand how is a big corporate company functioning. As a former CEO, for me this corporate culture is a very important point, and I would like to start with a very brief definition of a corporate company on the one hand and with a startup company on the other. And I would like to come up with a clear definition. A corporate company is a permanent organization that is designed to execute a repeatable and scalable business model. And the startup, on the other hand, is a temporary organization in search of a repeatable and scalable business model. If you look to this definition, it is clear that you have a total different mindset if you are on a startup, in the speedboat, or in a corporate company in a supertanker. On a supertanker, you have an admiral who is giving his orders. You have clear roles, you have a clear definition what everybody is doing, and the rules are very, very strict. There are a lot of Konzernrichtlinien and regulatory stuff, and everybody knows what to do. On the other hand, on a speedboat, everybody is doing everything. There are no rules because you have every day a new task and new stuff, and you have to be very flexible. So your advantage is that you are very flexible, that you are very fast, that you change maybe the direction of the speedboat every day because you see a new island or whatever. On a supertanker, if everybody would start to change directions, this would be a nightmare. If you compare in my former position as a COO, where we sell stuff all around in Europe in about 5,000 points of sales, if the manager of one of these stores would say, no, I don't sell the bananas from Chiquita, I want to sell it from another branch, it would be impossible. So this is very important to understand. And it is also very interesting that the main reason for failure in collaboration between startups and corporates is the different culture. You do have challenges also on the strategic level and on the operative level, but the main point is the culture, because of the thinking and the mindset in these both organizations is very, very different. Let us start at the strategic level. I think it's very important that you are aware what are you bringing to the table and what can be very important that you really address the strategic level when you start to collaborate. Sometimes corporate companies don't know exactly why they want to collaborate with startups. You would be surprised, but this is when I get a job or a mandate from a corporate company for scouting or whatever, my first question is always, why, Mr. CEO, would you like to collaborate with startups? Many times this is not clear, and this can be a danger. So also when you are addressed from or accompanied or approached from corporate side, ask them, why would you like to collaborate with us? Are you looking for innovation? Are you looking for innovation product-wise or process-wise? Or are you looking for a new business model? But I think this is very, very important that you have an understanding on the strategic level, why is this corporate company wanting to collaborate with you? The second point on the strategic level is be prepared. Really do your homework. Be prepared when you start to negotiate with a corporate company. They expect from you that you stick to timelines, that you have a ready product, and that you are able also to discuss with the technicians or the expert of this company. So really do your homework, and this is not a nice pitching event. It's very important that you are really well prepared if you show up. Another important point is that you have to reserve resources. Sometimes startups underestimate how intense discussions or collaboration with big corporate companies are. They think, oh, super, there are maybe BMW, F or whatever, or big companies want to collaborate with us, and they step into it. But it's very important that you reserve on your time from the team side, that you also be aware how long will it last, and that you really have resources. Otherwise, it can be very tricky and this collaboration will not work out, because you cannot stick to the promises, and you cannot fulfill maybe the project plan or whatever. Otherwise, it is not able to really reach good results in these collaborations. The next point, which is very important, are that you set up reachable and tangible goals and targets. This is also very important when you discuss with a corporate company. Why do I stress this? Make or really set milestones that you can reach. Sometimes startups overestimate their capacity, and then you cannot stick to it. And it's not easy to explain a corporate partner that you cannot fulfill, that you cannot deliver your product, that you cannot stick to the timetables. This can be very bad, and you can lose your reputation. And you know, it's not so easy, because you don't have a lot of shots. You really have to be prepared. Therefore, at the beginning, maybe you start with a little bit lower the expectations, but to reach it, it's better than to go in with a huge targets and issues. Why do I stress this? We come to this later on also on the cultural side. In the startup world, if you do a pitch training or whatever, everybody is motivating you and think big and do big. It's totally true. But when you work with corporate partners, you have to fulfill what you promise. It's not like a pitching show in a TV show where you tell a nice story and nobody is believing it. So it's very important that you come up with realistic timetables and realistic targets. Now I would like to speak about culture. I said at the beginning that the main spoiler, the main reason for failure in the collaboration between corporate and startup is culture. Maybe you know this very well-known quotation of Peter Drucker, "Culture eats strategy for breakfast." It is very, very important that you understand the mindset of the managers, that you understand the culture of the company when you work with them. And therefore, it's very important that you look which kind of corporate company would you like to work with. Is it a family-owned, small, medium-sized company where maybe the owner is decisive? It is maybe a huge corporate company where you have a lot of layers of decision-making and stuff like that. Or maybe it is also a normal startup like you, so you can approach very differently. Interestingly, if you look to literature, collaboration works quite well in family-owned companies. My explanation for that is that to some extent the owner of the company was a startup maybe at the very beginning. And so he has a bigger understanding for startups than in a corporate company where you normally only have managers. And it's also my experience that with family-owned companies, sometimes it can be very fruitful and it can be very productive if you have convinced the owner the things are done. Another very important point, culture-wise, is don't mix up pitching events with corporate events. I said it before, it makes absolutely no sense to be there, the big mountain gorilla, and tell the guys how great you are and whatever you can do, and then they find out that maybe you and only another guy is in the team and that you don't fulfill anything. Forget this. This can really harm your reputation, and believe me, I've seen so many events which I was able to schedule, where we met experts from a technology company, and then the startup was coming with their marketing people. This is in 3 seconds over. You know, they only make 1 or 2 questions, and if they have the impression the guys are telling only fluffy stuff, it's over. So really don't mix it up. And this is something very interesting, because normally in the startup world, if you do pitching trainings and if you do accelerators, everybody is doing a little bit the opposite. But if you meet then corporate experts and corporate companies, you should be trustworthy, quite professional, and don't tell them great things which are really not true. Another point concerning culture is manage expectations. it is very important when you, for example, have some problems, when you come into trouble with your liquidity, with your financial planning, whatever, communicate it. You would be surprised. I have a lot of trainings where I train managers, middle managers of big corporate companies. One of my standard presentation there is how to kill a startup, 10 rules for managers. They like it a lot, but they don't understand you. They don't understand why you are under this pressure, so tell them that maybe you lost some guy from the team, that something happened, an investor didn't pay his bill, whatever. Speak to the people, explain in which situation you are, and then you can manage these expectations. You know, there's this very old rule, don't surprise your boss. It's the same, don't surprise your client. If you surprise the customer, if they don't understand why you're not showing up, why is happening this or that, you can not be successful. It's very important that you try to explain your customers your culture, that they understand why maybe you are in trouble, why maybe you cannot stick to the timeline, whatever, but then it's easier. But if you don't show up or if you don't deliver, you will be in big problems. Concerning culture, I would conclude with a very, very old-fashioned issue. I would like to close with trust and integrity. In corporate life, your reputation is one of your trademarks. It's very, very important. And you know, there were very bad examples in the last weeks and months, if you look to Wirecard and other stuff. This can harm the reputation of startups in general, and you will maybe need another chance. So it's very, very important that you stick to it, that you don't promise more than you can deliver, and then I think you will be also successful. This is absolutely true, especially in a cultural environment, a business environment like in Europe, where you normally work on the so-called bona fides. This means that you want to have a success, but not only on the cost of your vis-a-vis, that both of you should win. This is in some parts of the world a little bit different, I know, but in Europe this is very, very important. So if you can show that you are trustworthy, even if you can't perform perfectly, people will trust you. And this can be then a long-lasting relation, and especially if you work with a big corporate company, long-lasting relations are very, very substantial and important. So be prepared for this. Now we are coming to the operational stuff, to the day-to-day business when you work with a corporate company. What should you take into account? The first point, which could be very, very essential, is we call it identify your mentor or find your padre. What does this mean? In many corporate companies, you do have some department or initiatives which work closely to startups. This can be an accelerator, incubation program, innovation program, whatever. And there are people who are pushing for innovation in this corporate company. And when you find some guy and they can show you, like a Sherpa, the way through the jungle in a corporate company, this can be very, very valuable and very, very helpful. Because normally in corporate companies are very political. It can happen that when you speak to A, B will never speak to you, and things like that can happen. You can believe me, as a former CEO of a 74,000 billion company, this is very normal. So if you have somebody who knows this stuff, even if he don't understand your business model in detail, but if he knows what is going on in this company, this can be very helpful. So one of the first rules is find your mentor, find your Sherpa through this corporate company, and this can be the cornerstone of your success. The second very important point when you work with corporate companies is be aware of the time management. You would be surprised how absolutely slow corporate companies are. 9 months was in my former management position, very fast. For you, 9 months is dead or life. So you should be aware that you schedule much more time than you expect. Corporate companies have a lot of decision making. It is very, very slow. And when you are aware of it, this can be very helpful. Another very practical tip is look to their balance sheet. Are they really publishing the balance sheet yearly, or have they are they following a different calendar? This is very important because in a normal balance sheet year, in September, there is the approval of the budget. So if you want to be in the budget for the next year, you have to be ready in June or July and try to be on the budget in this year's. Another interesting phenomena is sometimes some companies have in December a lot of budget, extra budget, because they have not spent it in the last year. So then they are looking for opportunities to spend it, and then this could also be a good moment to be into it. But be aware, sometimes it needs a year to really get a job and find this corporate company as a client, and time management is very, very important. Another advice is check the general conditions. Sometimes you will be surprised what corporate company, especially big corporate company, are expecting from you concerning liability and other stuff. You cannot fulfill it. And this is very important. It's important that you address this from the very beginning. When you meet the managers the first time, you could say, hey guys, very interesting. We checked your general conditions, because they don't think on that. For them, this is totally clear. But you have to address this point and say, we are not able, for example, to accept a liability of 10 million euros. We are only 3 guys startup company. We cannot do this. I have many examples where we convinced at the end the corporate company to overstep this, but it's important that you check it from the very beginning. Another very often bad surprise are the payment conditions. There are a lot of corporate companies, they have 180 days. So I, for example, coached the CEO of Deutsche Bahn, yeah, and after several months sending my bill, I called there and said, why don't you pay me? And they said, sorry, we have 180 days. You know, 180 days is forever for you. So it's very important that you address this, that you say, we cannot accept this, we need the money tomorrow, because I have seen many startup companies, they made the deal, they were so happy, and then they found out they have to wait for the money 4 or 5 months. So this is also very bad. Another very, very important point are then the decision making in corporate companies. You have to be really aware who is making the decision. You are maybe negotiating with a very nice business development guy and they signing the treaty, and then suddenly you get a call from the purchasing department and they say, yeah, you signed the deal, we want now 12% sconto or discount. So be prepared who is really then able to sign the deal and finalize the deal, and otherwise address this from the very beginning. That you say, we have checked your decision procedures and we cannot accept further discounts. For us, this has to be made. If the manager knows it, maybe he can help you to overcome it. If you are not prepared for it, you will have a very bad surprise and nobody will help you. The manager would say, sorry, these are our normal rules, so be prepared to address this from the very beginning and to work on it, otherwise it can be a big problem. What would be my most important advice? Taking together strategic obstacles, cultural obstacles, and also obstacles at the operative level. Communication, communication, communication. It is like in the crisis of a partnership with your girlfriend or boyfriend. Don't stop talking. This is always then the end of the story. Be aware, the more you can explain, the more you can communicate your situation, the chance is higher that a manager will understand you and you can help it. Not disclosing information in this case is very bad. So this is one of the most important things. Try to communicate as much as possible with the guys. Be transparent. Don't tell them that you have lost your business angel yesterday or stuff like that. But try to be very transparent on your situation, resource-wise, team-wise, and stuff like that, because so you can overcome surprises. And this is very, very important. So communication is number one and very important, sometimes quite difficult for technical guys. I have learned but this is essential for a good relation with a corporate partner.